Well, what we have before us is this book written by Rabbi Yosef Chaim Mimran, and we've been doing it off and on. If there was ever a time that we really needed to know how to pray and how to connect with Hashem, you really need a book like this one, written in English, make it easy for everybody to understand. The ultimate connection with God. Now, he says it's a 7-step guide to Jewish spirituality. Let's try to understand the Jewish perspective, the Kabbalistic perspective. It begins with the creator of the universe is nothing. It's a very difficult concept. Just think about it. I just said it sounds easy to say. God is nothing. You can't hang him on the wall. You can't not hang him on the wall. It has nothing to do with the wall. It has nothing to do with a philosophy or an ideology. It has nothing like that. There is nothing there. Nonetheless, what we are is something physical. We are here. We are physical. The truth is nothing. We are therefore what? To a certain extent, we live our illusions, a life of illusion. Whatever is groupthink, whatever the Weltanschauung, the view from America is not the same that you would get if you lived in Hungary or lived in Singapore. The view of the world completely different. The Weltanschauung is different. The needs are the same. We all need to eat because that's where we were created. The question is that where is God? Well, God, which is nothing, is everywhere. As far as we understand, because we're not everywhere, we are separated in trillions of different ways. But that nothing is within inside of us as well, and it is purely and truly good. It's inside of everything, because everything is wrapped around nothing. This is our stage, and we perform in it. So in order to really make that connection, the ultimate connection, we have to be able to remove the illusion that we think is life. And so, therefore, we have to, as another scholar, the great rabbi, I think his name is Itcha Meyer Morgenstern. I'm still working on his name because he's a Rebbe, became a Hasidic Rebbe. And he works to fill the obligations of a tzaddik in the Hasidic tradition. Talking about making yourself feel like you are nothing. Or nullifying your sense of ego. So he talks about that, and he's a colleague really, or a peer of Rabbi Mimran. Now, who was their teacher, I'm not sure, or maybe they're just picking up the collective traditions of Kabbalists. Let's read Rabbi Yosef Chaim Mimran. So the ultimate idea there, but just let me finish what I was saying, it's a little preamble, is that we, in order to receive the light of nothing, we have to be nothing. As much nothing as possible. And here Rabbi Mimran is focusing on what's our problem. Our problem is thought. How do we learn how to control? Can we learn how to control thought? So he says like this. This is the blurb which he writes at the end of each chapter. He says, there is a vast amount of intelligence that can take you to realms above and beyond the limitations of thought alone. Now, I'm just thinking that silence is another aspect of nothing. Let's read what Rabbi Mimran has to say now. He has part 6 here. He says he calls it hearing voices. We'll read the English only. In the beginning, one should increase in his dvekus with Hashem, the Blessed One. By doing this, a person will be accomplishing what the pasuk made reference to as having a share with him. Similarly, we find in Shir HaShirim giving a kiss with his mouth. Now exactly what he wants to say from this I couldn't gather. So let's see what he writes. If you would walk into the doctor's office and say, I hear a voice in my hand, in all likelihood you would be referred to a psychiatrist for treatment. Hearing voices is not considered acceptable in our society. Nevertheless, it is extremely common. Now he says it's not acceptable in our society, but it is possible, as we said in the introduction, that there are societies in which it is acceptable. The truth is, absolutely everyone hears a voice, or perhaps several voices, in his or her head, voices that are running constantly. Those voices are the thought processes that flow involuntarily through our minds. The ongoing monologues and dialogues and the arguments, and we don't even realize that we are capable of stopping them. Surely at some point you've come across people walking down the street talking or muttering to themselves incessantly. Quite possibly, you've simply written them off as mentally ill or something like that, without giving them a second thought. But have you ever paid close attention to the workings of your own mind? Has it ever occurred to you that we and all the other, quote, normal people in the world are not so very different for those those mentally ill individuals you've seen? The voices in our heads are continually commenting, speculating, judging, comparing, complaining, liking and disliking. What is unique about those we consider to be mentally ill is that they do all of this aloud, while we generally keep our mental conversations to ourselves. All this chatter going on in our heads may have nothing to do with what is going on with us at the time. No matter what is happening right now, and you're in the middle of something, but your mind is working, who knows from what, the argument you had yesterday or the meal that you're going to have tomorrow. So he says it happening right now. Our minds may be busily involved in reliving the past, whether recent or distant, or it may be imagining or even rehearsing any number of possible future situations that may or may not actually occur. Often enough, it imagines things going wrong or negative outcomes, even if things that really go right, which is what we call worry. And the mind may strengthen and intensify these thoughts by turning up the volume, adding visual images, or even adding mental movies to the mix. How about that? But don't we need this voice in our heads, we say? It may be very relevant to the situation at hand. It may prove to be quite helpful. Perhaps we are sure that we won't be able to manage without it. So even if the voice we hear is relevant, in all likelihood, it will interpret the situation in its own biased way by relating it to the past. And that is how we judge almost everything in our lives. The reason for this is that our minds have been conditioned by our history, by all that we've experienced in the past. And not only what we have experienced, but what we've inherited from our parents and our ancestors, and what we've absorbed from the world around us. The culture in which we live, in which we find ourselves, and all the people with whom we come in contact. It is constantly molding us. It is to this thoroughly conditioned mind that the voices in our head belong. So now he writes that the voice in your head might be your own worst enemy. So many people live with the most unwelcome permanent resident in their minds. That resident is a professional tormentor, a voice that is continuously attacking and punishing them, causing them endless misery and unhappiness. Think about it. It drains them of vital energy and may well result in broken relationships, stress-related disorders, nervous breakdowns, heart attacks, strokes, and diseases. That's our minds. Let's look a little bit at this blurb down below here. Some people, he writes, live with the most unwelcome permanent resident in their minds. A professional tormentor, a voice that is continuously attacking and punishing them, causing them endless misery and unhappiness. This is Baruch Fleischman. This is Rabbi Yosef Chaim Mimran, trying to help us to learn how to connect to the nothing which is God.